Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2022 Chevy Colorado, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster diode wiring kit. But before we do that, why don't we check it out and make sure this will be the right setup for you. So before we get too carried away talking about the diodes and how they work and everything else, I figured it'd be useful just to take a minute and refresh yourselves and kind of touch base on the main components that we're going to need to flat tow our Colorado down the road in the first place. There's going to be a total of 5 main parts that you're going to need. The first one is going to be the base plate, and that's going to provide us with a solid and reliable attachment point. That way we can hook our tow bar up to it. And the tow bar is going to be the second component. That's going to be the physical link that actually connects the front of your vehicle to the back of your motorhome. The third main component is going to be safety cables, and these are just there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. They're going to keep everything paired together. The fourth main component is going to be tow bar wiring, and what this is going to do is transfer the lighting functions from the back of your motorhome to the back of your Chevy, keeping you safe and legal. And last but not least, the fifth main part will be a supplemental braking system. And what this is going to do is apply the brakes in your Colorado whenever you hit the brakes in your RV, helping to bring you to a more predictable and complete stop. There are a couple more parts that aren't absolutely necessary, but I definitely like to recommend just to give you a good experience overall. And one of them is what's called a battery charge line. And what that's going to do is essentially maintain or trickle charge your truck's battery whenever you're flat towing it behind your motorhome. That way, you know, it won't be drained from the braking system. A lot of times the supplemental braking systems are going to use your truck's battery power. So what happens over time, you know, they keep using power and power and power, and you just run out of juice. And so that's where that charge line is going to come into play. It's going to keep your battery full. That way when you get to where you're going, you'll hit the key and everything will start up. And the other thing that I suggest for the Colorado is what's called the automatic battery disconnect. And I always recommend this for these trucks because with these, whenever you flat tow them, you have to disconnect the battery. And so that really leaves you a couple of choices. One of them being to pop the hood, undo the battery whenever you're flat towing it, hook it back up whenever you're ready to start your truck. And I mean, is it doable? Sure, it'd probably get annoying over time. And that's where something like this would come into play. All right, so instead of having to deal with all that, you simply just push the button, it disconnects the battery. Whenever you're ready to start the truck, push it again, power comes on, and you're ready to roll. And this is a perfect example on how the diode wiring is going to work. So we have the left turn signal going on our motorhome, and it's sending that signal back here to our Colorado's tail light. So it mimics it, and not only is it going to work for left turn, but also the right turn and your brake lights and your tail lights. So you'll have all your bases covered as far as that goes. And honestly, you know, this is probably the best option in terms of getting, you know, tow bar wiring. And I say that because once this is installed, it's going to look completely factory. It's super easy to hook up. You literally just plug it in, which we'll show you that in a minute. And you're not even going to really know it's there. You know what I mean? And they're reliable. They flat out work. We've had a lot of good luck with them. As opposed to some of the other types, magnetic lighting, for example. Will it work? Sure. But does it make the most sense? I don't think so. You have to set them up every single time that you want to use them. They stick to the body of your vehicle, and I would assume this is steel. Some trucks are aluminum now, so you can't even use them to begin with. But even say if the Colorado did have a steel bed, which it might, probably does, but you still have to run your wires all the way up to the front, plug them in, do that every time you want to flat tow, then take all that stuff off whenever you're ready to drive your truck around, and then store it. You got a big old box of wires and lights and stuff, and you know how storage is when you're over the road. Trying to flat tow and everything else. So, you know, when it comes down to it, diode wiring kit, it just flat out works and makes the most sense, at least to me. So here at the front, whenever you are ready to hook up and flat tow, you're just going to have your cable here that you plug into the connector in the front of your truck, and then to the back of your motorhome, and that's it. You don't have to turn anything on or mess around with it or anything like that. Which brings me to my next point. There's several different kits available, and pretty much all of them, the only difference is they're going to have different types of cables, and so I just want to go over that to make sure you get the right one. For example, the kit that we're using here today is what I like to call the bare bones kit. You kind of just get the wiring and the diodes and a couple of connectors and things like that. And that's for those of you that have purchased a tow bar that comes with the cable and the connector. Perfect example, our Roadmaster Nighthawk here today comes with those components, so why buy them again, right? You can just get the bare bones kit. You already have the parts from your tow bar, you'll be good to go. But for those of you that have a tow bar that doesn't come included with these components, you're gonna need a full kit, right? So all the other ones are going to come with the wiring, the diodes, the butt connectors, and small ins and outs, and really just a different type of cable. So probably by far one of the most popular ones is a kit that has this coiled cable, 7 to 6. Like I said, probably the most popular. This is going to be for those of you that have tow bars that do not have a channel on the side of it. So like this one, you can see our wiring kind of runs through the tow bar. If your tow bar doesn't have that, this is what you want. There's also the kit identical. This is just a 7 to 4-way round. You know, honestly, you might as well just get the 6. It's kind of the same thing, but at least with the 6-way one that I just showed you, it'll give you an opportunity to have a couple of open connectors if you ever need to use them. For those of you that have a tow bar with channels in it, you can either get the straight one, which will allow you to run through there, or one that's like on this. This is the hybrid, so it's partly coiled here and then straight. This one's really long, so if you happen to have a high-low adapter or, you know, a lot of distance in between, you know, this would be a good option for those of you that have those channels on the tow bar. And then you have this one. This is probably the least popular. This is just a 4-way flat to 4-way flat. You know, if that's what your motorhome has, you have an older motorhome or something like that, this is always an option. But like I said, probably the least popular out of the bunch, but it is still available. So hopefully that kind of clears things up for you and gets you going in the right direction in terms of what kit is going to be best for your particular situation. So when it comes down to it, a kit you really can't go wrong with. You know, I've done a lot of these on tons of different vehicles. And always had pretty good luck with them. It's very rare that we see one come back with an issue, and usually if you do see that, it's something that a connector just worked loose or something very simple. So if you're looking for something that is easy to use, easy to figure out, you know, definitely a choice worth considering. As far as getting this installed, really not too bad. Everything's pretty straightforward. It does take some time just having to route all the wires and stuff, but as long as you stay focused, you really shouldn't run into too many issues. If you'd like to see how that's done though, feel free to follow along. We'll go ahead, pull into the garage, and put it on together now. To begin our installation, we're gonna be here at the front of our truck, and we're gonna get our wiring hooked up. Now obviously I have the front fascia removed, and that's because I'm doing this at the same time that we're doing our base plate. So what I suggest doing, gives you a little more room to work, but it can be done with the fascia and stuff in place. But with that said, we need to take our wiring, and you're going to run you know, one end of it through your bracket or wherever you plan on mounting this up. And I want to mention, whether you're doing your diode wiring or your charge line, if you did get a charge line, probably makes sense to do all this at once, right? Because a lot of the wiring gets ran to the same spots and so on. So with that said, we'll go ahead and do our diodes first. And what you're going to want to do is carefully cut in between the wires and separate them back. And you want to strip back the insulation a little bit. And give these these wires a good twist as well. So I'll do that same thing for the remaining wires here. Now we can grab our wiring, and you're going to slide the rubber dust cover over the ends of it. And then we can grab our connector plug and get these hooked up. So the terminals here, how they're going to work is you simply just back out the set screw a little ways, and then you'll slide the wire in and tighten this down. So we're going to be using 4 of them for our diode wiring. TM, which is tail light, for the brown wire will go there. GD is ground, so the white wire will go there. LT is left turn, so the yellow wire will go to it. And RT is right turn, so the green wire will go into it. So we'll go ahead, grab the appropriate wire, place it into the terminal, and using a screwdriver, we'll simply just snug this down. And repeat that same process to get the rest of our wires installed. Here's what the diode wiring is going to look like whenever you have it all hooked up. And since I'm doing the charge line as well, I'll go ahead and get that hooked up next. With our wiring hooked up, we can then take our dust cover, slide that over. You can apply some dielectric grease and some sealer and stuff in here to help keep the terminals protected, but I usually wait to the very end to do all that. That way if you have to get back in here, it's not a huge mess. But we'll slide the dust cover over and push it into our bracket. And I'm just going to secure it with some self-tapping screws here. We can get our wiring routed up into the engine compartment now. So it just comes out of our plug over through here and essentially just right up kind of behind our headlight where it goes into the engine compartment. Here's where our wiring comes up, and what I've done is taken our white wire. You can actually split it, so if you go to the other end, you can peel this apart. And I'm gonna go to about here, somewhere in this area, and I'm gonna actually cut this wire. You wanna hold on to the other portion that was on the other side of our wiring there, because we will be using it here in a little while. We're gonna strip that insulation back. Give it a twist, and then we can crimp on a ring terminal. So that'll get crimped on. This is going to be a ground. And it turns out right here in this area, you have good, flat, clean sheet metal. And so I'm going to take the self-tapping screw that they give you, put it through our ring terminal, and secure this to the body of our vehicle. With that ground hooked up, we can now continue to route our wiring. So I just ran it along the side here, where it drops down along the firewall and to the underside of our vehicle. So underneath the vehicle, our wiring is going to drop down right here along our, I believe there are factory brake lines. And then I just continue to route it towards the back of our truck. So I just went through here and essentially along the side of our frame. So there's a big bundle of factory wires. So I use some zip ties along the way to secure it. When you're doing this, do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts. This truck's pretty easy, pretty wide open there. I just continued to route it along, and then in here it kind of tucks off into the inside and starts to run along the inside portion of our frame. We'll kind of run up through here. It's kind of hard to see for the moment, but up here is where it comes out and goes up and over our shock absorber there and along the side of our spare tire. And then right here, what I've done, I pulled the green wire off of our yellow and brown, and then that white wire that we had left over from our ground, I taped that to the end. of our yellow and brown. This will eventually run up into the taillight pocket there on our driver's side. Then the other length of our other end of our white wire, as well as the green wire, I ran to the passenger side. So kind of just ran it along the back side of our bumper there, up through here where the wires end. And now we can kind of just let this hang for now. We'll go up top, get our tail lights out, and get all the wires pulled up into place. Now to get the tail lights removed, if you drop down the tailgate on the side here, we're gonna have two T15 Torx bit screws. We'll pull these out. You should be able to grab the tail light, kind of work it, pull straight back on it. And then we'll disconnect our wiring. So here we just have a clip, you can pop that off. And then the bulbs are just quarter turns. You turn them loose and get them removed. So I'll set our taillight off to the side and then do the same thing to get the other one removed. So I went ahead, grabbed our wiring, pulled it up into the taillight pocket here. And then I strip back the ends of the insulation. So yellow one, crimp on a blue spade terminal. And then the white and brown wire, what you're gonna do is twist the bare ends together and try to get them tight so they don't want to come apart on you. And with those, you're gonna take a yellow connector there, put it over both ends of the wire and crimp it down. And then we can get ready to tie into our factory wiring. So this is the bulb that will be at the top. That's the one we're going to be working with. And I tested the wires. I just used a test light to figure out what signals do what. So orange wire is our taillight signal. This here gray wire, that's going to be for our stop and turn. And so I'll cut those in half. About in the middle there. And all four ends, you're going to strip back the insulation, give those wires a twist, and all four ends are going to receive one of the blue terminals. So I go ahead and repeat that process to get the rest of them done. So we got all these crimped on. That's what it looks like. Then we take our diodes. And these, I just stuck them together. There's some sticky tape on the back. And the side that has a single terminal, the outside, you're going to plug those in closest to our light bulb. Like that. Then obviously just color for color. So gray wire will go to there. Orange to orange. And as far as our new trailer, or our new wiring goes, since the factory orange wire is our taillight signal, we're going to take the brown and white wire, plug that into that diode, and with the gray wire being for our stop and turn, we can take the yellow and plug it into that diode. With those diodes hooked up, I just zip tied them to our factory harness here and get all the bulbs plugged back in. And once that is done, we can simply just reinstall our tail light the opposite way that we removed it. Over here on the passenger side, I essentially did the same exact thing. Even the color of the factory wires are identical. So what I did, the white wire, the new white wire, that being the taillight signal, we plug that into the diode with the factory orange. And the new green wire, that being our stop and turn, that plugged into the diode that has the factory gray wires. So essentially identical on how we hook this up. But now that this is done, we'll get our light put back in and then we can test everything. To test our wiring, I simply just plugged into a test box. Chances are pretty good you're not going to have one of these. So you can use your motorhome, but keep in mind, If your motorhome has issues with its 7-way connector, then that's going to translate back to this. So just something to think about. But with that said, we'll try our taillights, our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brake lights. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster diode wiring kit on our 2022 Chevrolet Colorado.